to in PTSD. The original imaging studies that we used to do on this thought otherwise, but the hippocampus, which is supposed to mitigate, is supposed to provide context, which we end up doing outside, the hippocampus very quickly in these cases says, all right, you're not going to listen to us, we're out of here. And literally, it shrinks so much that the whole thing, since those scans, like it shrinks. The better scans now show the amygdala actually not only does get bigger, except for the hippocampus, but there are more connections. There's a neurologic saying, neurons that fire together, wire together. And where are they wiring together? And it isn't just 5 years ago that they were wiring together. It was 2 nights ago when you woke up with the damn dreams. It was the day beforehand when the neighbor kid was putting off the damn fireworks, and you kept finding yourself going to one of your weapons in your house because it seemed like you were a small arms fire and you were to return fire. Right? It's always been able done because, again, it already owns so much of your brain, everything triggers it. Intellectually, can you think your way out of that kind of problem? I wish! Can't to a degree, but if you think you can do it on your own, please show me how, because I got guys who like to. There are some ways, and there's a couple websites to take advantage of, but it ain't easy. The brain learns and grows to being smarter makes it worse. Trauma wasn't years ago, it was like last year. It self-reinforces again and again and again. The first time you hear the neighborhood kid firing off firecrackers, and all you can do is suffer and think, boy, I know it's not I know it's not small arms fire, it's firecrackers. The more you think about it, the more it becomes connected to that wartime experience. So it gets worse unless you find a way to think about it that makes it better. It's a little bit like, because you get people say all the time and say, just don't think about it. Just put it out of your head. You know better. It's like me telling you all, I want all of you right now to stop thinking about the color purple. What's the first thing that goes into all of your head? Purple. Thank you very much. Kind-hearted advice? Sure. Useful advice? Not so much. We're going to talk about PTSD, the official symptom complex by the DSM-5. It's fun being a psychiatrist because we get to redefine our illnesses every now and then rather than being hindered by actual biology. Though we're now understanding the biological basis a lot more. Isolation. Do we isolate ourselves for right reason? Yes, we do. Why? Because we go out with our family and our friends, we are on guard, and they can't protect themselves, and it irritates us. My anger, my fury, the deaths that I have caused, contaminate my loved ones. I will make them worse just by being here. I love my wife and kids. When I came back, I thought about divorcing my wife and leaving the kids because I thought, not because I hated them, because I thought I was bad for them. Logically, reasonably, and you'll see this again and again, it will break your hearts. If it doesn't, you're not paying attention. Challenging. Is it really? Your wife put you up with your law this long, and now you're going to leave her? Maybe that's her choice, buddy. Does that sound like a cruel way to phrase it? Yes, it is, and I can get away with that because I'm a fellow vet. But you'll have to find a nicer way of doing so. There are lots of guys that films. I will lose my cool and dishonor my service family, fellow vets. I will go to Walmart and I will see some fat, misbehaving bastard do something wrong. And I will find myself elbow deep in their blood. And then I got to put up with the police, and then it's embarrassing, and I'm supposed to have better control, and the people who hear about it will think, oh, that's crazy. And so I'm just not going to go to Walmart no matter how much I need food. Right? If you want to find out how much PTSD is in your community, go to your closest 24-hour mart and find out who's shopping at 3 a.m. All right. Very, very useful way to do it. Thank God for 24-hour marks, or else a lot more of us would need. All right. Hypervigilance. It is trained up. We want you to be hypervigilant. We want you to jump every time there's a thump of the distance that could be incoming mortars. So in the military, we start out by training up even before you've had the trauma, because we want you ready. PTSD may be a disease here, but it keeps your ass alive out in the war zone. And now, since most people in the military come from families of military members, we've kind of selected. Because the only people who got to have kids were the guys who survived the last war. So, we train that up. It's a useful thing. Again, I got guys who said, I hated it out there, but it felt like the only place I belonged. I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm going to re-up, because it's the only thing I can do anymore. I'm too bad for anything else. And literally, I'm practically radioactive with rage and anger, and it's the only place I can realize it. The irregularities here usually mean something different. When I came back, I was up in Rochester, Minnesota, home of the Mayo Clinic, where it was just too nice to be believed after all that time in the Army. Just thought I died and gone to heaven, as I deserved it. I'm driving my kids home one day, my wife and kids, and I come across a pile of debris in the road. Now, the fact that I used the word debris instead of the dead leaves that it actually is should tip you a little into something. And I stopped about 35, 40 feet away as I was trained to do, and I was hardly ever a driver over there. And there was no way to drive around it, and I could not think of a way short of driving through other people's backyards and on their roads to get around it. And I reached over to my rifleman to shoot it up, and the rifleman was my wife, and she hadn't even brought her damn rifle. And my 8-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old didn't even know how to put together a security perimeter around the damn thing. And I realized how ridiculous that was. I remind myself, not a lot of Taliban or Al-Qaeda up here in Rochester, Minnesota. Now, this is a university town down here, so there may be more, I'm not sure. But I have to remind myself often. That sounds funny and crazy to you. Good. I use humor a lot because humor is one of the few neurobiologic ways to turn off the rage button quickly. And I'll tell you, until I hit that button, even now, my heart is beating faster, my skin is tense. If you were at an electric conductor, I'm a little bit closer to being able to kill every last one of you. Because I've been trained to do so. As a doctor, Christopher Kittle's trained about that sort of than anybody. Think about my guys who've been on 100 missions. We train people at the shooting range with human silhouettes, so it is easier to look at some other mother's son in the eye, one other of God's creations, one other gift of biology, and brains and willpower, and end them, usurping the power of God himself. Then we get to carry that weight forever. All right, sorry. Get a little tense sometimes up here. I apologize about that. I'm on guard duty 24/7, 365 days a year. If I was on a base, I could hand off the guard duty to the person who's at the gate guard. I've got a lot of guys, the last time they had a good night's sleep was when they were on base, which is weird because you think those things would trigger it. But there, they can let down their guard because they know somebody has their back. At home, no one. And they've got a wife and kids, the most important things that they have in the world that need to be guarded. I still get up in the middle of the night, check all the doors one more time. Listen up. They had that damn fireworks display up at North Liberty, and I could not see the fireworks because of the tree line, but I could hear the thumps. Feel the thumps in the distance? I spent a lot of time staring in that distance, in that direction, trying to convince myself it was goddamn fireworks. That I didn't need to put together a defense plan. Scaring the Jesus out of my wife and kids. I'm a freaking psychiatrist. So, in case you think you can make yourself immune to stuff, in case there's a prophylactic shot to avoid it, if there is, please let me know, because I could use it. I've got a lot of young guys I'd like to give it to before we send them out in harm's way again. They're going to need stuff. And I use that a lot. So if it can happen to me, it's probably going to happen to you. Because again, I was a doctor. I got treated better than anybody else in the damn army. All right. I'll verbally bite the head off someone distracting me from my duty, especially the people I'm trying to save. We get a lot of complaints from the spouses and the kids of us grumpy old vets. And God knows, I had to work hard to get up to the level of merely grumpy. Why? Because we're trained to, and because the duty's that important. If I'm trying to keep you alive, do not distract me with how well you did at the swim meet when I'm looking for people who are trying to kill you. And yes, I know the odds of that happening are very, very low. They're not low enough. Are you the kids of veterans? No?
Right here.
You may have noticed this sort of thing. Didn't overreact, just a smidge. Again, I try to remind myself, not that many Al-Qaeda and not Taliban here in Iowa City. Maybe more than Rochester. But If I'm out in public, if my kids do something, you know, like play or be joyful or act like kids, in my mind, they are putting a big, giant bullseye on them. They are declaring themselves a target of opportunities. So I don't go out with them anymore because I yell at them. Well, I do now, but again, I had to train that up. I had to really force myself to watch some of these kids in public and not yell at them. Consciously, deliberately, make a habit of it. The good news is, to me, psychotherapy is brain training. And I'm trained up. I know what training is. So when you need an analogy, when they're trying to say, what's this psychotherapy going to do? It's going to be talking about feelings? Nope. Mental training. Sir, yes, sir. So if they're giving some, I want to talk about feelings, that sounds like this. Don't tell me I deserve forgiveness. Tell me how I can not kill my family members or kill people out in public. You can do that. Training is a simple way to do it. We'll get the forgiveness stuff. So you get a little more confidence with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're so nice, by the way. You said not sugarcoating, and I thought, boy, she'd dip it in sugar. All right, intrusive memories. Intrusive memories, emotional memories. Bad things happen, and we're not supposed to have emotions are out there. Intrusive memories are terrible. In my sleep, come back when I hear booms. And I've got it easier than most. I work in emergency rooms, and I like working in emergency rooms. Let me tell you, blood comes back, and I remember having my hands over dying bodies that I could not save, and that comes back to me at inappropriate moments. Usually after I've taken care of whatever the casualty is, I'm trying to help at that moment. Always these guys, depending on what the trigger is to. For a lot of my guys, it's all about driving. It's all about convoying different places, hitting IEDs, and seeing their good friend who was in the truck in front of them turned into small pieces. And not being able to do a damn thing tonight, except take your weapon out and kill a few, ragheads or hotties. So get a little bit harder, get a little meaner, and make it easier to look at some of the other side and them. Hoping that'll make a difference, knowing probably not so much. Certainly figure that out when you get back here. Are emotions counterproductive to staying safe out in the war zone? Absolutely. They're bad for your reputation, they're bad for your concentration, they are bad for your ability to do your job. There was nothing more dangerous on my FOB, field operating base, than when somebody got a Dear John letter, because then I know their brain was not in the game. They had to go out there. You are not allowed emotions out there except anger and pride. And the pride is brief, and the anger doesn't consume you so much as it is you. It is the fuel. It's used to focus your thoughts. I've got guys who adrenaline is the only neurotransmitter they know. Avoidance. Going back to isolation. If I stay in my basement, I won't put my family and honor at risk. I'm trying to handle a war zone. I can't carry an automatic weapon to the grocery store, though. Anti-Second Amendment folks. And if I see something that reminds me, those thoughts get out of control quick. I had a guy driving down to Cedar Rapids. The real dry snow we had that winter was like the dust in Iraq. And you would think the cold temperature would kind of take you away. But he had to pull over 3 different times because it became so strong he couldn't see the real road because he was stuck on the Iraqi road. All right. Negative association, dissociative amnesia, the trauma, I can't remember the specifics, and please, God, do not ask me to. How the blanky blank do I deserve to live when I left my squad mates there? Survival means failure. I failed them. Trust me, it's speeding in too quickly. You may join the Army because you love your country, and you love your mom, and you love the American freedom, you love the Constitution. By day 2 of basic training, the only reason you're putting up with that bullshit is because your buddies are there with you. And if you lose them, fundamentally, you are closer to those sons of bitches, even if you don't love them, you are closer to them than you are to your own mother and brother. Most of us were not like close to our own families, so that's not a big deal. If I had been worth it, you know what, then my comrade, my buddy, my friend, my squad mate, the people who I'm responsible for would be alive. So don't tell me to forgive myself. It would be a better place if they were there, here, not me. You gotta be ready for them to throw that at you, because I've had it thrown at me. Right? I'm not working against you here on that promise.
No,
I just want you to
yeah.
And really, people feel like they live on a different planet, like they become different creatures. They're no longer humans like the rest of you. I can now sometimes remind myself that really I'm part of the same species, but oftentimes it doesn't feel it. It's like whatever innocent was, and events that constantly replay in my head, waiting to take over all my thoughts, dreams, hopes, whatever. All right. Last sentence. Warmth alterations, arousal, and reactivity associated with traumatic events. And kids are just being kids. When they start making noise, I had to clean them from the party, from the event. And taking them down on the ped mall. They were making noise and they were being targets, and I was going to lose my cool, and that would make us more targets. I woke up to a noise in the backyard and inadvertently shot the neighbor's cat. If by inadvertently mean point my gun at the target and shoot it. One of my favorite PTSD patients. When I'm in the classroom with a bunch of noisy, young, fresh-faced, hyperactive idiots, there's no freaking way I can concentrate on the professor, and God help this stupid blank making noise in the seat behind me. He was going back to school. Smart kid, had gotten a bad shoulder injury, had gotten both good and bad physical therapy, wanted to become a physical therapist to do it right. He kept trying to find jobs before that where he could just be by himself doing something, but they kept putting him in leadership management positions because he clearly worried about folks, and he got into fist fights with idiot workers who kept doing stupid, dangerous things, and he thought they were going to get killed. And if they were going to get themselves killed, he was going to kill them first. We've had these guys. It wasn't this hard intellectual classes that hit him. He was having to sit in with a bunch of freshmen who didn't know which way was up. A bunch of meat shields kept making freaking noise behind him when he was trying to listen to the professor. Now, there's a lot of ways you can treat all these terrible, terrible symptoms and still stay in the real world. You don't really want to stay in the real world, but frankly, your responsibility to your wife and kids forces you. And your TV is here, and you like being down in the basement with the TV. So there are some problems. That's why we resort to the miracle of booze. Now, I know social workers never work with alcohol problems and never work with people trying to rebuild that sort of thing. So I know this is kind of esoteric for you, but really stay with me. It's not every single PTSD veteran who ends up self-medicating with these substance things. I've heard there's 3 or 4 in this state alone who didn't. I'm not sure I believe it, but I've heard there are. I've seen a couple thousand. I feel safer around people and contaminated with my anger, kind of myself. I don't feel so lonely or feel much of anything else. And frankly, I'm feeling bad enough. When I let those feelings come through, I get really good at just suppressing all of them. I know how to numb out. I can't shake the sense that there's danger anymore, or at least feel confident I can take any threat out. I can numb that down to where at least it's not there all the time. I've got to recheck the doors. I can go off to guard duty, usually by drinking so much that I go off consciousness duty. And real men, by God, and we've seen this with the Army again, real men do not cry, they, by God, drink. Who are? A little selection bias, a little bit of cultural bias, a little bit of training bias. Drink, drink, drink. Marijuana's making some inroads, so in case you've got competing horses in this race, there are some other things out there that, oh my God, it's a tradition. Enough alcohol, I don't think about living, I don't think about all the esoteric things, I don't think about existential crisis, I think about walking from here to there without falling over. It's nice to have that clarity of thought. I can forget, or at least briefly, that I let my comments down. I can ignore the stupidity, I can ignore the risk. I can make it through freshman 101 and ignore the meat shield bullet sponges. They keep making freaking noise and don't understand how serious it's supposed to be around me. And probably, at least when I shoot at the damn cat, I'll miss it. That was the laugh line. That's where you're supposed to have the uncomfortable chuckle. Trying to throw you a bone here, folks. Sometimes they don't like the booze. They don't like the loss of sense of control, because these guys are all about control. PTSD is one of the 2 signature injuries of this war. The other is brain injury, and the non-brain injured PTSD, they think they may use control if they go outside the door, so they stay in the basement for 3 days. And the brain injured impulsive folks who worry they might lose their control when they see blood on their knuckles again. But this is the only thing that allows me to kind of have a life again, sort of like a life, you know? It's a little like benzodiazepines, diazepam, Ativan, but I don't need a prescription of that. I don't have to talk to a doctor about that. I don't have to report that, and if I'm still in the service, I don't have to worry about that coming up on my drug screen. Of course, there are advantages to benzos over ETOH. The psychiatrist, I can tell you, I don't know what the hell they are. At least with the margarita, you get a little vitamin C that may be useful to you. When they come to you on there from very kind, very well-meaning doctors, Ativan, clonazepam, God help you, Xanax, typically written by good-hearted folks who are trying to help, they are not helping you out. All right? It's going to make it much harder to get the reaction you need in therapy to be able to get to a better place. So, prescription medications are no better and oftentimes worse than booze. It's the reason they put an X both beginning and the end of Xanax to remind you not to use this damn drug. When you hear the factory's blown up, you'll know which doctor did it. I think about that every now and then. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about medications. I will fly through this because I know you are not prescribers. How am I doing time? Not too far out. Okay with that? All right. Prazosin. Is this a brand spanking new cutting-edge psychiatric drug? No. It's an old blood pressure and prostate drug from the 70s, for God's sakes. And I use that a lot because I don't want my guys thinking this is some new magic. This is an old medicine not developed as a psychiatric drug at all, because my guys don't want anything that even sniffs of psychiatric. I don't want my brain messed with. It's messed with enough, thank you very much. Sometimes gets away in the therapy. Nope. Doesn't mess with the brain. We use this for blood pressure and pathway. It blocks adrenaline. All it does. But it's one of the few that crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it can block the adrenaline in your brain. And the adrenaline is a neurotransmitter. It's the important piece of the wiring that allows these nightmares to happen again and again and again. It's like you're walking around with a rifle that has got a really loose trigger, and it keeps going off and blowing your foot off. We're going to tighten that trigger up a little bit. We're going to lock that adrenaline somewhat. We're going to turn down the volume of the adrenaline so that the civilian world can take over part of the internal noise of your life, maybe even become an majority partner. Lasts around 8 hours for most folks, anywhere from 6 to 14. Again, it's not like some of the newer medications that we discovered it's pretty variable, it's a little tricky to use. It still drops the blood pressure that we used to, can cause lightheadedness, does not intoxicate. If they say, I don't want anything that will keep me from waking up if I need to wake up to take care of my kid. If I need to wake up in case somebody does break into my house, they will not wake up drunk. They will wake up a little lightheaded and not intoxicated. I had somebody on 20 milligrams on this, which is what the old maximum dose was. We still take out a couple of 3 jokers who were rustling as goats while crazy things. I was kind of disappointed because he had planned for this. He'd always been hoping. He was a trained Army sniper. And he was ready to kill some bad guys. That was what he was trained to do. That's what he knew how to do. He's going to feel good about finally taking out bad guys. And the adrenaline is low enough that he sees that they're just idiots. Because American bad guys are poorly trained compared to their counterparts in most of the world. Really, we're behind the world in most of this. And he just chased them off with a couple well-placed sniper shots. It's a great story. I'll tell you sometime. He did just fine.
Excuse me. Could you repeat that? With that drug, you wake up what? But you don't wake up what? What did you say?
Oh, you wake up lightheaded, but you don't wake up drunk.
Thank you.
It's one of the few sleepers that aren't intoxicators. So if you're worried about waking up clear, because there are bad guys in the world, and trust me, for me to finally realize there aren't people who are going to be breaking into my house on a regular basis, I had a bit of a revelation. Intellectually I got it, it was really emotional. It didn't feel like that at the time. That was important. So a lot of guys say they take the medicines because they're placating their loved ones. All right. Menstrual sepsis is not a psych med, as if you go to Google it, you will find mostly stuff about prostates and blood pressures and this. It does block adrenaline. It does a darn good job of it. Beta adrenaline, or no, sorry, alpha adrenaline. Alpha subtype. Now, for some reason they can't use prostacyclin, there's some other options. Topamax, also very good for taking away nightmares, but it's nicknamed Dopamax for a reason, because it makes you really dopey at times. Also can make you furious and angry often, which we're already good enough at, thank you very much. Trazodone, a pretty good sleeper, used a lot in psychiatry, but because it will keep you asleep and make it harder for the nightmares to wake you up, the nightmares get a chance to really rev up before you wake up. Mirtazapine, an antidepressant, prone to causing weight gain, which is pseudopromptus ulceratus. And in the last ditch effort, you can move their morning SSRI like Prozac. You can do it at night. They can put it off the whole stage 4 and REM sleep, which is where dreams happen. So you're minimizing real deep, restful, helpful sleep. There are a couple other things that goes on in these cases. If they tell you they are snoring a lot in their sleep, if they're waking up kind of gasping for air, we see this a lot of the old Vietnam vets whose PTSD is flaring out, it's because they're gasping for air in the middle of the night and their brain is going to whatever nightmare will wake their tail end up, because oxygen trumps pretty much everything else. If they tell you, yeah, they told me I've got obstructive sleep apnea and I'm supposed to use my CPAP, I'm a big believer in CPAP because I use one myself to realize so many of my patients had fewer symptoms than I did for it. But get them to use the darn CPAP. Am I asking you guys to do medical things for me? Yes, I am. Sorry about that. Dropping into service, not even paying for it. Sorry. As an officer, I'm supposed to be that way. All right. SSRIs, serotonin, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It increases serotonin in your system, and serotonin is kind of the feel-good neurotransmitter by keeping you from breaking it down so fast. My guys are really good at breaking down whatever serotonin they get really, really fast, because feeling good gets in the way of survival. Serotonin also causes your GI tract to move, so a lot of folks will get that symptom at first. So if you are helping out as part of your job, getting patients to be compliant with their medications, tell them you're going to start this, and the way you can get stimulated more than your brain with this is your gut for about a week. Oddly enough, your gut runs faster than your brain does. It'll settle down after that. What's nice about that, because I start at a ridiculously high level, and I tell them, you're going to get the side effect. If you don't get the side effect, then bring the pills in, because we gave you the wrong stuff. I come from the school, it ain't medicine if it doesn't taste bad, or if you don't have some proof it's doing something. All right, so I don't say, I'm going to make it nice and easy, we're going to go easy and slow, we're not going to bother you. Soldiers don't believe that. It's going to suck for a week. I'd like to say I put it in kinder, nicer language than that, but I don't. Counties extra general fix. If you think about it, and if you're trying to help folks, if you're working with docs saying, if you got a guy who remembers to take his medication or agrees to take his medication only about half the time, fluoxetine 20 what you want to use. If they're a little bit better than that, sertraline is what I like to use with my guys. It's what I use with my guys out in Baghdad. You do have to worry because alcohol will have a greater effect. You became a cheaper drunk on this stuff, which for some guys that's an advantage. I'll spare you my funny story here. The atypical is venlafaxine. Venlafaxine and duloxetine, which are Effexor and Cymbalta, also helpful for pain symptoms in a lot of folks. They actually cause some adrenal stimulation, which may seem counterproductive, but a lot of guys feel really empty and like there's no joy, no pleasure, like they've got all these open adrenaline receptors that are sitting there, and the world seems like a gray, gray place unless you stimulate it a little bit more. Venlafaxine does a lot of helpful with that. Time for my story on this.
I think you got about 5 minutes.
Oh, all right. We'll go back to this one. Mirtazapine, not that specific as well. Watch out for these MA agents. Benzodiazepines again. Oh, so if one of your docs is prescribing benzodiazepines for this stuff, stop working for them. All right? Just really, for God's sakes. At least some extreme scale like that the Xanax is already. So, what's your job going to be? Again, psychiatrists like being a quartermaster, but instead of desert boots or jungle boots, I've got PTSD boots or depression boots. The boots don't do the walking. And if you aren't doing the walking, All I'm doing is making you a little more comfortable when you're sitting there in the damn jungle. My goal is to get you out of the damn jungle. But I'm going to draft you guys to be the recon leaders, the folks who help them find their way out of the jungle. Is that fair or not? Don't care, do it. So, in case you're not sure what's the most important thing, whether it is the pills or the psychotherapy, let me be clear. As a guy who gets paid better for the pills, so again, it is unfair. Your part's the more important piece. I don't care if they got out of the jungle barefoot or in boots. I just want them out of the damn jungle. Okay? So in case you're having trouble putting language, in case they don't want to do the existential thing and the nicer thing, put in language they understand. First, get out of the damn jungle. Your family's waiting for you on the other side of the jungle. Please, get your ass over there. So, one, don't tell them to be easy or problem-free. Nothing telegraphs incompetence to a veteran like zero threat assessment. Oh, you can do this easy. Really? What part of life has that ever been easy? What are you trying to tell me? Give them something to do. People don't volunteer the Army because they want to stand around and do something, or do nothing. They volunteer for the service because they want to do something. So give them tasks, tell them it's going to be hard, and then hold them to it. We understand it. We went to basic training. Every new recruit went to the days that free time is where the troops get in the most trouble. The vast majority of my casualties in the first month I was in Baghdad came from basketball, not combat. But 2 broken arms, a broken ankle, and a multitude of lacerations do challenge them to do hard work. There's a difference between being helpful and understanding and being an enabler when you sit there. I appreciate you saying, don't work on it until you're ready. But give them some concrete things that you expect and want them to work on right now. Tell them it's going to be tough. And if they won't do it for themselves, and they won't do it for themselves, do it because their wife deserves it for sticking up with their asses all this time. And if that won't even work, because a lot of times by the time we're seeing them, they're already in the process of forcing their wives, or wives are in the process of forcing them. Do it because their kids deserve to have a dad. As for a lot of these guys, their dad was a suspect, memory, wasn't really there. We're calling the duty. Is that kind? Is that nice? Is that gentle? Hell no. Is it effective? Turns out, yeah. Do you laugh? And again, I want to emphasize this a lot. A lot of my guys, the only place they laugh in their entire lives is at my clinic. Now, my clinic isn't a laugh riot all the time, but I try to keep it that way as best possible. And it's good for that part of the brain to get a little stimulation, for that part to get a chance to grow. But then realize maybe a little bit of lightness and easiness because it makes the rest of the medicine a little bit easier to swallow. Here's the reset button. I've not found anything as effective as what I use in my stories about myself to remind myself I am not bastards that do hard things over there, make hard choices, and carry the weight all the time. If you want to learn about military culture, Google, you'll get about 1,000 different things. The VA has a National Center for PTSD, very, very useful stuff. Where's my... VA National Center for PTSD has got a website, a lot of useful information there. There's a military, Google military cultural complement, and I was going to give you the website stuff, and I realized you can't hit on this, so thank God for Google. I'll give you most of this stuff. There's a VA Duty Essentials for PTSD provider tool, and PTSD pocket guide for healthcare professionals. All right, I've got just a few minutes. I may go over. I want to tell you 3 interconnected stories. I'll make it fast. Day 4 or 5 over in Iraq. We're taking over for the cab that is swept through in front of us. It's about 3 weeks into the war. There's a local pediatrician, British trained, who's been really helpful, trying to help folks, but he can't get any supplies. The primary care doctor, battalion surgeon for the 3rd Cav that I was working with, a very nice pediatric pulmonologist, had been working with this guy trying to get supplies. There was this warehouse that had medical supplies that we were going to help because it was run by a rival Shia or Shiite or whatever the damn thing was. So we take a couple guys, the 2 of us go over there with a contingent of his troops and my troops. We walk in, and there's 3 mafioso types. Muslim mafioso instead of Italian mafioso, but otherwise it would be hard to tell the difference. And my guys are pointing their M16s and they're pointing our AK-47s at each other. And there's this guy sitting there in the seat saying, "So, you'd like some supplies for your guy, would you?" Well, that'd be wrong. And time, it sounded like it could have been that, but it was in irregular language that get translated. And my very kind, very nice pediatric pulmonologist takes out his sidearm, walks up to the guy, and holds the gun to his head, and whispers to the guy something, and then points it down in his stomach. And voila, the forms happen, and equipment gets sent out. I asked him what he said. He said the lucky ones die quick.
The lucky ones die quick.
So, the lesson there. What had happened, I'm sorry, I got the stories turned around. What happened about a couple days before then, I was at a local Iraqi hospital. We had a person we were using as informant for information been shot through the mouth. And that was to try to save him. We stabilized him. We were trying to find a surgical suite. We found one of Saddam's old specialty hospitals. It still had some of the doctors and stuff with it. In the bed beside this guy was this, what looked like an 8-year-old kid had been hit by a car. He could talk a little bit, but he was going down. He could tell the fluid was going into his lungs. We took him with him because we wanted him saved. And all I had was adult equipment. I intubated him 8 different times. We took him to one of Saddam's hospitals, and I said, "Will you take care of this guy? Will you take care of this kid?" He said, "No, he's not, one of the elite animals. He's just a street kid." I said, "Well, can I get a pediatric size intubation tube? $4. And oddly enough, I left my cash money at home from the war that day. And I couldn't believe it. "Please, can I do it?" And I didn't have a group of troops from anything else. And the answer was no, we were busy, go away, we're taking care of this other guy, because his relative brought a stack of money and he got in and got help. 8 times I intubated this poor kid. 8 times went down to his stomach because it was too damn big. As he faded, and as he faded, and as he faded away, and I toned it again, and I had blood coming out of his mouth because I was trying to save his life. And I could not. Finally came out and took the kid away to the back to prepare his body. That was a free service. It's a nice looking Muslim woman, dressed in looking like a Muslim nut or something. It kind of gives me this little squeeze on my shoulder, which is bloody dangerous for her to do, by the way. That's what it says. It's okay. Americans are so kind-hearted with your insane, dangerous ways. So what a kid. Trying to be nice. So in case you're unsure what the value of the human life in Iraq is, I've done the research. It's $4 billion. He was actually 12, not 8, because he was malnourished on top of it. So it works out a little bit more than the 50 cents a year if you're divided by the better health care. I learned a lesson after that, though, with this pediatric politician. What I should have done is pulled my sidearm, handed one of the people working there, and got the attention of the rest of them. I don't know whether to feel bad because I let that kid die, or feel good because I didn't murder somebody who is merely a victim to the situation. So I don't even know where my moral injury comes from, but I know that dream keeps coming back. I'm only seeing the bad blood spots that I could not get out of that uniform from that kid. It doesn't haunt me as much as it used to. Well, it's nice, because I'll talk about it today. So in case you're unsure where some of this comes from, you're still having trouble grasping, hopefully that helps put you in the mindset. By the way, after we got that equipment released, that very nice pediatrician, again, who was helping a lot of kids and everything else, they blew the place up. Thankfully, they put the word out, so whatever Muslim subgroup that was being ran, they got their people out of there, and most of the other folks realized when we were going, they better all get out. So they killed only a few women and children at the Women's Children's Hospital, as well as the guy and his, I think 2 members of his family did escape. See, that kind of a point to me, too. No good deed goes unpunished. There's evil in the world. When you try to convince us otherwise, you're going to have a credibility problem. On the other hand, we can make the world a better place. We can make sure the demons that rule the world out there do not rule our demons here. Our demons, really. I just screwed up a perfectly good analogy, but I think you know what I'm trying to say here. plus for being here, because again, you are going to do the harder work, frankly. I probably could be replaced in many ways by a good computer program recommending medications. You guys are going to be the platoon leaders that help lead these guys out of the jungle, out of the desert, out of where they hurt the most. God bless for doing it. Any questions?
We're going to take a 15-minute break, so if you could be back here by quarter till, well, it's not 15 anymore, but.
Yeah. But I never thought of it.
I changed